Thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football. The 4-1-2. It's a great day to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Let's jump right in. So there's being reports made that TJ Watt is going to be moved around a lot more in this year's defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Give me 1 second. My hair is wet. I don't have my headphones on, so I feel like a fish out of water right now. Let me pull up the article. Give me 1 second. Beat writer sees real chance Steelers shake things up. How they use TJ Watt might actually happen. You know, for years we've been hearing from Tomlin how he's going to change things up and TJ Watt's going to be moved all over the field. And then week in and week out, it's always the same thing. So what the article has to say, beat writer sees real chances Steelers shake up how they use TJ Watt might actually happen. While we have been promised change in how the Steelers use TJ Watt annually, Mike DeFabo believes this year could actually happen. It helps to have an almost entirely new coaching staff from the head coach on down, while Pittsburgh will carry several principles over. Many things are changing under defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. And that's something that TJ Watt has seemingly not only come to accept, but also embrace. At least that's the way it might come off in his public comments. Over the spring, he copped to previously being too stubborn to allow the Steelers to move him around stationary from his left outside linebacker post. It is limited the defense's flexibility. That might not be the only change coming to his game under the new regime. However, it seems like every year around this time, we're talking about TJ Watt moving around more. But with a new defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, in the fold, it appears it might actually happen. DeFabo wrote for The Athletic. In Graham's scheme, a lot of movement is built in. So Watt said he won't have a choice. It also wouldn't be surprising to see Watt drop in coverage a bit more than in years past, as Graham often utilizes simulated pressures to keep offenses off of balance. Well, yeah, I mean, when you watch games and TJ Watt's getting double team, triple team chipped, and then you think that Mike Tomlin and Austin would switch it up and drop him back in the coverage just to confuse the quarterback. Nope, it never happened. And it never would have happened. His entire career, it didn't happen. Tyrone Keaton, 8375 in the super chats. TJ has to move around and more moves. That one move ain't working anymore. He needs to switch it up completely. A lot riding on the season. 42 million. Needs at least 15 plus sacks. Stop the run better too. I mean, I agree with you with the sacks, but TJ is pretty lights out against the run. But I hear you. His overall game needs to be better when you're getting paid that kind of money, and age can't be an excuse. It's true the Steelers used to drop their outside linebackers in the coverage considerably more than the manner in which defense has evolved as former head coach Mike Tomlin assumed more control over the unit. After all, pass rushers rush the passer. TJ Watt is adept in the coverage too, but you want him getting after the quarterback. You know who's a perfect example of this? When Kevin Green used to play alongside Greg Lloyd used to be the linebacker that most of the time, like 95% of the time, would drop into coverage if Dick LeBeau or Don Capers wanted them to a linebacker to drop. Most of the time it was Greg Lloyd. That's why Greg Lloyd doesn't have the amount of sacks as Kevin Green. You know, I'm not saying you have to do that with TJ Watt, but, you know, you've seen TJ Watt pick off passes in the flat, you know, instead of rushing him upfield. If you know he's about to get double team, triple team, you drop him back to the middle of the field. He can pick the ball off and it can be really, really confusing for a quarterback. DeFabo previously talked about Patrick Graham returning the Steelers to the root of the 3-4 defense, and a lot of that had to do with how it seems to intend to use TJ Watt and the outside linebackers. Obviously, switching sides is less a staple than is the coverage duty, and really it makes sense. If you're not dropping your outside linebackers, you might as well have a big defensive ends. The athleticism is an asset that ought to make the offense question what your edge players will do. Exactly. I mean, with Dick LeBeau, the zone blitz zone blitz schemes or the fire cloud blitzes, whatever you want to call it. It was very, very confusing to quarterbacks. You're used to seeing the outside linebackers rush the passer, rush the passer, rush the passer. And then, if it's a huge play in the game, all of a sudden they switch things up and the one linebacker drops and the other one, rushes or vice versa. You can really pick the ball off. It can really do damage. So I like that I'm hearing this. I really do. I hope the Steelers go back to their more traditional base 3-4 defense. We're just going to have to see what happens. But I like reading that. Ex-Raven bashes Big Ben. Who cares what Ben Roethlisberger thinks after recent comments? Ex-wide receiver bashes trash Steelers. Yeah, whatever. Who cares what Big Ben thinks? Smith said recently on CBS News Baltimore. He's never going to say anything positive. As long as you have Lamar Jackson, your window is there. It's funny because he's the same guy that people were saying that about in Pittsburgh, but he was in his 30s. Lamar Jackson is still in his 20s and is very much the best player in the league. I do like, wow, this guy, talk about being delusional. Who is this? Who's saying this? So let me find out. Torrey Smith, are you really going to say that Lamar Jackson is the best football player in the National Football League? Are you really trying to say he's the best quarterback? You wouldn't take Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson. You wouldn't take Patrick Mahomes over Lamar Jackson. It's just a stupid, it's just idiotic, this guy. However, seems like this is a guy that seems like this is a guy that's trying to pump up the sorry Steelers. They're terrible. I don't care who they have a quarterback. They have a false sense of reality that all of a sudden Pittsburgh is going to change because Mike Tomlin was the problem. They're going to find out real quick that roster is still trash. Yeah, spoken like a true Baltimore Ravens fan who knows absolutely nothing. Tyrone Keaton, 8375 super chats. Lamar is a top 5 QB, but he's not clutching the playoffs. And we own Lamar. He can't beat us. So yeah, I agree with you there. I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback anymore. He can't run the way he used to run. He's still dangerous. I'll give him that. And he can still make plays from time to time. But when you play that style of football that, I call it a college brand style of quarterbacking, like a Tim Tebow type, and he's taking that much punishment, sooner or later it catches up to you as a QB. And I think it has caught up to Lamar Jackson. I predicted that Lamar Jackson would be pretty good for his first, 5 to 8 years in the National Football League. And then after playing that brand of football, he would fall off. And I think that's exactly where Lamar Jackson is right now. I think he's about to really fall off. But I mean, the Steelers are trash. We're going to win the division. We won the division last year. We're going to win it again. So, breaking: NFL denies quarterback Brendan Sorsby supplemental bid. No draft to be held this summer. Thank God. I mean, I'm just, I didn't want the Steelers even thinking about drafting Brendan Sorsby. I don't think they were going to. But if the supplemental draft is canceled, so he doesn't have a chance to sign with any team. So this is on him. This is his own fault. Here's a player that had a first round grade and he was going to be a first round draft pick and he decided to gamble nonstop, 100 grand on bets. It wasn't like it was an accident. I mean, Roger Goodell is definitely to blame in this. He's always promoting gambling down everybody's throat, every second of the day. So Roger Goodell's no angel in this entire situation. But I'm glad the Steelers cannot get their hand on Brendan Sorsby. Let him go be a problem somewhere else. We already had one quarterback for the Steelers to the Super Bowl. That was Neil O'Donnell. We don't need another gambling addict, that's going to destroy the Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowl dreams. Tyrone Keaton, 8375 super chats. Yeah, agree. We will win the division. We're definitely winning the division. So Greg Cosell sees immediate roles for pair of Steelers rookies. Tyrone Keaton, 8375 super chats. Yeah, thank God the 2027 class stacked anyway, quarterback wise. I agree with you. Just be patient. If Will Howard works, eventually it works. We just got to be patient. We're building our team all around until we're building our team everywhere else till we get our guy. Same thing happened with Big Ben. The entire team was built. They finally got Big Ben, and we all saw what happened. Greg Cosell sees immediate roles for pair of Steelers rookies. Throughout a busy offseason, the Pittsburgh Steelers place a significant emphasis on upgrading the offensive side of the football. adding a number of new players to help fit new head coach Mike McCarthy's vision. Veterans like wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr., Rico Dowdle, and Brock Hoffman were acquired to shore up areas of need, along with the return of quarterback Aaron Rodgers, who reunites with McCarthy. While those veterans will have key roles in 2026, longtime NFL analyst Greg COSELL believes a pair of rookies will make big contributions to McCarthy's offense this season. Appearing on the latest episode of the Ross Tucker podcast, COSELL spoke highly of two young offensive pieces and wide receiver Jeremy Bernard and running back wide receiver Eli Heidenreich. I really like Bernard a lot. I think he's just one of those guys that's going to be a good pro. And when I say that, do I mean he's going to catch 80 balls for 1,200 yards? No, but I think he's a really good player, COSELL said, according to video via the show's YouTube page. He's physical, he's competitive. I wouldn't say he has a lot of juice, but he's got a little more than you think. So I really like him. Then there's a lot to like with Bernard. He was also considered one of the most complete receivers in the 2026 draft. And while he doesn't have any flashy traits, that makes him stand out amongst the rest of the receivers. He's just a rock solid type player. I say this all the time. If Jeremy Bernard becomes Brian Hartline, who dominated for the Dolphins for 6 or 7 seasons, we're all going to be happy. Bernard is a great route runner, has good hands, plays a physical brand of football, and will block his tail off. That all aligns with what the Steelers tend to look for in a receiver. And now they'll have that in abundance behind DK Metcalf and Pittman. He still has to beat out Roman Wilson for wide receiver 3 role, but the Steelers receiver room looks much better right now than it has in recent years. And Bernard is just a big part of that. He should have a sizable role as a rookie, even with a quarterback and Rodgers, who notoriously has little patience with young pass catchers. Then there's Heidenreich, who has multi-positional versatility and is a popular name ahead of training camp due to his story and his ability to make plays while wearing multiple hats. The question is if he'll make the 53-man roster, but COSELL believes he will. And I think that Heidenreich also needs to be working in the slot and at wide receiver, not just running back. Tyrone Keaton, 8375 Super Chats. Yeah, Bernard, complete player, great size, hand, speed blocker. And with all the attention, DK Pittman, I see Bernard gets 600 plus yards. I definitely think he gets 600. I think he gets like 720, maybe 50, 60 catches and like 7 touchdowns. I agree with you there. I think he's going to play because he can do a lot of things for you. COSELL said of Heidenreich, he's big, he's physical, he's a movable chess piece. And again, he may play 18 snaps a game, but I think there's going to be a place for him in the context of the offense. Shortly after the Steelers drafted Heidenreich, McCarthy opened some eyes by stating they would open the playbook for the versatile weapon. What that means remains to be seen, but he's going to get a real chance to grab a route. I think he's definitely making the roster. He's too valuable not to. I hope he works in at receiver. We could definitely use him there. I don't think he's going to see the field too much as a running back, but he'll make the team. He'll make the 53-man roster. I'm still confused why the Steelers used a 4th-round pick on Caden Wheatgen when they knew they were going to take Heidenreich. You could have let Heidenreich do punt return duties and kick return duties. But, I mean, Wheatgen is he's considered the best punt returner and kick returner at Iowa. And that's saying a lot. They had Tim Dwight. They had the cornerback from the Eagles. I forget his name off the top of my head. The real athletic corner. I think they're moving him to safety this year. But, the Steelers seen something in him, and hopefully it works out because we definitely need to have better, kick returns and punt returns. We need to start in better field position. Our punt, I know kick return, punt return has nothing to do with punting, but our punter was terrible. Positive Pokes, Neil O'Donnell officially retired. Yeah, thank God. Tyrone Keaton, 8375. Yeah, wet gen punt kick returner and maybe some small routes type guy. I agree. Oh, Positive Pokes. I meant Sorsby, my bad. He retired already? Positive Pokes, he retired. Is that true? Or are you joking, Larry? Or are you just saying like, oh, he retired because the draft is, canceled? The supplemental draft is canceled. Or did he really say he's retiring? Labriola taps 4 Steelers who must make big second-year jump. Bob Labriola of Steelers.com listed 4-year player listed 4 second-year players who need to show out this summer. In my opinion, there are 4 second-year players who will have to have solid and consistent camp preseason to end up with a spot on the 53-man roster, Labriola wrote. Sebastian Castro, Will Howard, Caleb Johnson, cornerback punt returner Dante Kent. All 4 of these players had competition added via the draft, which means all 4 have much to prove to make their. I don't think Dante Kent makes the roster. Positive pokes, they paid Boswell all that money, a lot of field goals this year. That's true. Tyrone Keaton, 83.75. I don't see nothing about that. He will probably go back to Texas Tech. He was eligible. I didn't know he was eligible. I thought he was banned, but whatever. I'm not going to read all these names. I mean, Sebastian Castro seems like an average player, could carve out a niche on special teams. Will Howard, I think he's going to be the number 2 quarterback going into the season. Caleb Johnson, I think his days are numbered. I don't think he makes the roster. They might give him 1 year to get it together, but I don't think he's going to have much effect. You know, Jalen Warren and Rico Dowdle, they're going to get majority of the carries. And cornerback Dante Kent, he's got his work cut out for him because we're pretty deep at corner. So I don't think he's making the team either. These guys might go to Caleb Johnson and Dante Kent might go to the practice squad. I don't think Caleb Johnson goes to the practice squad, but I do think Dante Kent would, unless somebody else signs him. Tyrone Keaton. Positive pokes with the supplement drafts gone. He might go blacklisted by the NFL, to be honest. Yeah. And Roger Goodell definitely plays a part in ruining that young man's life for promoting gambling 24/7. Tyrone Keaton, 83.75. Positive pokes. We will score touchdowns more this year, getting wide receivers and Rico. I don't think they're going to get hurt, especially Jalen Warren. Rico Dowdle is real tough too. But you guys are talking to each other. Like, yeah, I'm thinking that's at me. Let me move on from that article. I read that yesterday. Oh, here we go. Chris Carter, this is what he had to say about the 1970 Steelers dynasty. Dominates anyone. Chris Carter picks 1970s Steelers as greatest dynasty in NFL history. That team right there and the collection of players that have gold jackets, it dominates anyone. Carter said Tuesday on his Fully Loaded podcast. To me, New England, it's 2 batches. They won 3 and 3. People try to put them together, but it's totally different. The way the Steelers drafted, the way they developed their players, there's no slight to anyone that's on that list, but the Pittsburgh Steelers and how they did it and who they did it with, to me, supersedes any of the other stories Carter added. I mean, I agree with Carter 1,000%. And Terry Bradshaw, nobody puts Terry Bradshaw in like the top 5 quarterbacks to ever play in the NFL. I saw an excuse the other day. Oh, Chris Sims said this. Chris Sims said, oh, the Steelers didn't ask Terry Bradshaw to do much. Really, Chris Sims? They changed the entire offense to a smash mouth to an airing it out attack with Lynn Swann and Stallworth. So what are you talking about? They changed the whole entire offense because they wanted Terry Bradshaw to throw the ball downfield more. He wins 4 Super Bowls. He calls his own plays. It's a time when you could literally kill the quarterback and not get a flag. I don't know how Terry Bradshaw is not considered one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play. Every time you hear Tom Brady, that's all I ever hear. Joe Montana's number 1. He's number 1. Terry Bradshaw, I put at 2. I'd even put Troy Aikman before Tom Brady. To me, Tom Brady lost too many Super Bowls. Okay, he's got 7 rings, fine. But how many did he lose? 3, 4? I can't say a quarterback that lost that many Super Bowls is the greatest quarterback to ever play. Positive pokes, power run, all play, action possibly. Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, this is the greatest NFL team ever. I agree with what Chris Carter had to say. When you look at the players on that team and for that time period and 4 Super Bowls and going from the basement to, that many Super Bowls in kind of a short period of time, greatest team ever. He's been going off natural ability. Joe Hayden shares advice he gave to Joey Porter Jr. I've been talking to him. Hayden said Tuesday on his Debo and Joe podcast. because he's been going off natural ability. He's lining up versus these dudes like I'm 6'3", 210 pounds. You can't get open on me. At the golf outing event, I'm talking to him about now you know what you're doing now. You're starting to look at those splits. You keep going out there playing one-on-ones with the dude. It don't matter what he running because you can strap him, Hayden added. I said, because how much better would you feel now when you know he's running a slant and you're just playing with him like you don't know? Now you get into that position and the slant's coming and you baited him. Now you're playing one-on-ones. You're walking out there. I'm going to guard you no matter what you got. It's me and you. You're not going to catch the ball. You know, this is crazy because Rod Woodson talked about this. Rod Woodson obviously is much better athlete than Joey Porter Jr. could ever be. Doesn't he was a big corner, Rod Woodson. He doesn't have Joey Porter Jr.'s size. I can't remember the coach's name who took Rod Woodson aside and explained to him that when a wide receiver lines up in a certain down and distance, he can only run certain routes. And when Rod Woodson was taught that, he said it took his game from being a great player to a Hall of Fame player. So it's very, very important that when you're a corner, that you understand the mental part of the game, what receivers are doing in certain formations, the down and distance. And I'm glad Joe Hayden is talking to Joey Porter Jr. about this. He wants Joey Porter Jr. to take all the guesswork out of his game and be more of a student to the game. And hey, if you don't want to listen to Joe Hayden, then listen to Rod Woodson because Rod Woodson talks about this all the time. Tyrone Keaton, 83.75. Joey Porter Jr., top 5 in the league. I can't wait for Porter to get paid. I agree with you there. I thought the Steelers should have handled his contract first. I've said it a million times. I'm not going to say it again. You're going to want to slap me because I'm boring you, but you see where I'm going. Kevin Colbert doesn't think we've seen the best of Pat Freiermuth yet. Pat's one standout ability was the ability to make a contested catch. He's not the fastest guy, but he can get open and make contested catches. Is really a good quality of his. Colbert told Steelers Depot Scott Brown. Hold on, my dog is barking. Sorry, Rocky, calm down, chill out. Freiermuth had a lot of strengths coming out of college, and making contested catches was one of them. His hands are consistent, and he isn't afraid of physical catches in traffic. But he also had a combination of route running and overall athleticism to pair with that size. You know, I saw an article written the other day, and it said that the Steelers have one of the best tight end rooms in the entire National Football League. Now, I know this was a homer and a Pittsburgh Steelers insider, but what are you basing that off of? Pat Freiermuth didn't catch any balls last year, and Darnell Washington was hurt in like week what? Who knows? I don't know, week 9, week 10. Darnell Washington wasn't knocking them dead, catching 80 balls for 1,000. Rocky, sorry, my dog is barking. Rocky, stop. Shh. My dog's barking. Hey, can you guys let me know if you hear my dog barking so I could take him out of the room? Anybody in the super chats? Anybody in the super chats? Let me know if you hear my dog barking, please. So I could put this on hold for a second. But yeah, I read Rocky stopped. But I read that article about Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth. Oh, good. I read that article about Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington being, a top tandem tight end room in the National Football League. I like Pat Freiermuth. I like Darnell Washington. I think they're really good players, really good people, but they're not basing that off of production. They're basing that off of potential. So I was kind of laughing to myself. Positive post. Cole, Kemet, and Loveland definitely better. I agree with you there. I think they top 8. Yeah, I'd put them in the top. I'd put them in the top 10. I'd put them in the top 10. I'd probably put them at 10, honestly, if I'm being completely honest. Charlie Batch tells a story, thought the Steelers were going to fire him during training camp. Nobody ever talks about how valuable Charlie Batch was as a player and a teammate for the Pittsburgh Steelers for a very, very long time. Charlie Batch, I really like him as a human being. He did it the Steeler way. Very, very valuable to a team. Charlie Batch is the type of player that embodies what it means to play football, always doing what's best for the team. You cannot have enough Charlie Batches on your team. During his 8-year career with the Steelers, Charlie Batch held down the backup quarterback role behind Big Ben, giving his hometown black and gold some peace of mind at the most important position in sports. But Batch's most important role arguably came as a player representative for the NFL Players Association and later in the NFLPA vice president on the executive committee, a position he held during a contentious 2011 collective bargaining agreement negotiating with owners. Positive Poke says in the super chats, Charlie does help Homestead. That's a crap hole. Otherwise, yeah, and I forgot all the things he does in the community also. So that's a good point. But Batch, that year, Batch and the Steelers voted no to end the lockout, feeling frustrated with how the NFL had treated the franchise, particularly when it came to punishments handed down by Commissioner Roger Goodell, not to mention players who were upset with revenue splits, benefits, expansion of the regular season, and more. At that time, the league was in a 132-day lockout. The NFL and most of the players wanted to get back to business. The Steelers, including Batch, did not. That decision to vote no, making it 31-1 decision to end the lockout, had Batch feeling like he was about to be out of a job. We're sitting back in training camp, and you have 10,000 people at training camp, and all of a sudden, I had to sit in a meeting and present to our players the collective bargaining agreement, the one I had helped to put together, Batch told Steelers Depot at the luncheon. We're sitting there and we're about an hour and a half later for practice. And all of a sudden we leave the meeting room and Steelers GM Kevin Colbert says, Charlie, how did the meetings go? I said, it went great. I immediately called my wife after that and said, babe, you might want to get up here for the training camp because I'm probably cut, she said. What the hell happened? I said, I just put your stuff together and get ready to come up here and let me get ready to go practice. I called her back and she was on the turnpike off Route 30, getting near Irwin. And from there, she just gets to the field. And I look over at Mr. Rooney and he gives me a little look and she said, what happened? I said, we actually voted no for the CBA. And the CBA was 31-1. So the guy leading the charge, that was me. I thought I was fired. But in fairness to the Rooney family, they said, we'll let business stay business. And I was able to play for 2 more seasons after that. I love this because I remember when the Steelers did this. The Steelers were the only team in the league that voted no, that they didn't want Roger Goodell to have full control of the NFL. And since Roger Goodell has gained full control over the NFL, we've seen how he has destroyed the game. Thursday Night Football, complete garbage. Claims that he cares about player safety. You can't recover and play Thursday Night Football. Gets rid of the kickoff, all the political messaging, the Washington Redskins name, the gambling. Everything is a complete mess since Roger Goodell has taken over the National Football League. He's completely destroyed it, and it breaks my heart. It just does. Breaks my what I see what the NFL becomes, and now we're doing all these international games, traveling all over the world. Literally breaks my heart what the NFL has become. Roger Goodell is he's the most greedy. He's just such a politician. He's all about player safety. Oh, you're all about player safety? Then why do we have Thursday Night Football? Why did you add another game to the schedule? Why are you taking our players all over the world where there's a possibility of a terrorist attack? Roger Goodell is full of shit. I can't stand the man. James Harrison said it best. If the man was on fire, I wouldn't piss on him to put him out. And I couldn't have said it better. Can't stand them. I absolutely love the National Football League, and I feel like Roger Goodell has single-handedly destroyed it with all the rules, with all the garbage. You can't hit anybody anymore. If you fall on a quarterback, you know how many games have been decided because of bad penalties? You hit a quarterback, you fall on top of him, there's a flag. You don't think that's ridiculous? Just make the player sign a waiver that they're not going to. We all know the consequences of playing football. Now, Roger Goodell could have handled that situation a lot better with the older players. You know how much they have, trillions of dollars. You couldn't have just helped them with their health insurance, gave them some money, because we do know that back then the helmets weren't as good. You can't blame the hitting and the physicality in football. That's football. It's called playing football. If you don't want to get hit, if you don't want to be physical, if you don't want to play a violent sport, don't play football. But Roger Goodell could have handled that situation with class, and he chose not to. And the league has suffered for it because now he's doing overkill. Like you can't even curse at another player on the field without a flag coming out. Troy Polamalu said it. This is the soft-spoken Troy Polamalu, who never curses, said that Roger Goodell is turning the National Football League into the National Pussy League. His words, not mine. So if you're hearing it from Troy and he doesn't talk like that and he doesn't have a mouth like that, what is that telling you, Rod? Roger doesn't care. The only thing that Roger cares about is money. That's it. That's the only thing he cares about, and that's the only thing he will ever care about. So let me see what else is going on. NFL film guru has 2 questions Pittsburgh's offense must answer. NFL films guru Greg COSELL gave his 2 biggest questions for the Steelers offense. O-line and the run game. To me, are the 2 questions as we speak in mid to late June, he said via the Russ Tucker Football podcast. The severity of the issue has lessened in recent years, but those 2 questions have lingered for the Steelers for several reasons. Their first offensive line rebuild failed, and then they plopped first round running back Najee Harris into the middle of a situation, expecting a delivery from run game hell. He couldn't. Very, very few running backs realistically could have. Yeah, but I was a big Najee guy. You took his production for granted. Every year with the Steelers, never missed a game, always went over 1,000 yards. Okay, he averaged 3.5, 3.9 yards a carry or 4. I thought Najee Harris was a great player for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I was hoping that he would be re-signed, but he obviously wasn't. So, I mean, one thing that Greg COSELL forgot to talk about here is if we don't stop the run, we're not beating anybody. The Steelers, I think that our offensive line is a strength of the team, but if the Steelers' run defense doesn't start stopping, we average 155 yards a game on the ground. One week we'll give up 250, and next week we'll give up 120. And Steeler fans are like, we played great this week. No, we cannot afford to go let a team rush for more than 100 yards a game. You got to keep them at like 88 yards a game. I think the run defense is more important than anything. So he has his opinion. I have mine. Stop, Brock. I'm going to go down in a minute. Is Will Howard in driver's seat for backup quarterback job? The Steelers will enter training camp with 3 quarterbacks behind Aaron Rodgers, Will Howard, and Mason Rudolph. The returning options: Drew Aller, a 3rd-round rookie, seems set for a redshirt year. While Rudolph has been a backup for most of his career, many believe it's Will Howard's job to lose. How true is that, though? Yes. The Steelers are getting a good look at Howard this offseason, but for what purpose? How much of that is about evaluating him for the future, and how much for this year's backup spot? Mason Rudolph is far more experienced, and the Steelers actually believe they can win this year. Of course, the Steelers could struggle to carry both Howard and Rudolph on their roster. Rodgers and Aller are locks, presumably good health. So the Steelers will have to decide whether it's worth the trouble to carry 4 quarterbacks. While not unheard of, it's a rare roster construction for good reason. Still, if ever there was a year for the Steelers to carry 4 quarterbacks, this would be it. And if the Steelers carry 4 quarterbacks, it's very likely because they believe Mason Rudolph is their best option to be the backup. If they felt Will Howard were the better answer, wouldn't they just keep him and cut Rudolph? Here's the big X factor in this situation. Mason Rudolph has not been coached as well his entire career. He played under Tomlin. His offensive coordinator in Tennessee was Arthur Smith. For the first time in Mason Rudolph's career, he's playing under Mike McCarthy, a quarterback guru, somebody that's an excellent quarterback coach, knows how to work with quarterbacks. So you might want to keep him around before you cut him, because who knows? Maybe Mike McCarthy can fix him. Maybe Mike McCarthy can turn him into the next Rich Gannon. Could you imagine if Mike McCarthy took Mason Rudolph and turned him into the next Rich Gannon? What a transition that would be, huh? So, I mean, you got to give every player on the roster this year the benefit of the doubt, because you got to look at who's been coaching them for the last 19 years. So I don't think we should do anything drastic with our quarterbacks until we see them in preseason games. and what we should go from there. Kevin Colbert, he talks about Mike Tomlin's future and his Steelers legacy. Kevin Colbert worked closely with Mike Tomlin for more than 15 years, and the former GM doesn't think we've seen the last of Tomlin on an NFL sideline. Colbert's own experience, however, is the ultimate qualifier. He felt the same way while working as the Steelers' director of football operations when Bill Cowher resigned as Pittsburgh's head coach after the 2006 season. Cowher was still months away from his 50th birthday. 20 years later, he has developed a great second career in television. Colbert told Steelers Depot Monday after an annual lunch for legendary Western Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic League WPIAL football coaches, I do think, like Bill, Mike's a coach at heart. That's been his life. It's been his life in Pittsburgh until mid-January, the day after the Steelers' latest playoff loss. Tomlin resigned almost 2 decades after taking over for Cowher. No one was more shocked than the players in his own locker room. Since then, Tomlin has largely receded from the public eye. That will change soon enough. Tomlin will become one of the faces of NBC Sports as a studio analyst for its Football Night in America Sunday night show. His charisma, way with words, and insight figure to make the cameras and viewers love him. Wow, the glazing for Tomlin never ends. Well, I guess you've never been to a Mike Tomlin press conference after a game, whether it was a win or a loss. But hey, I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I know Mike will be great at TV, Colbert said, at Grandview Golf Club just outside of Pittsburgh, and people are going to see a side of Mike they might not have seen. Okay, well, here's what I want to happen. I do want Mike Tomlin to come back to coaching, and it has nothing to do with the draft picks the Steelers are going to receive. I want to see the Mike Tomlin go to an organization that's at rock bottom, where he has to draft every player. He doesn't get to have Bill Cowher's roster. He doesn't get to come in and have Hall of Fame coaches all around them. He doesn't get to come in and have a James Harrison, Troy Polamalu-led defense. He doesn't get to inherit a Big Ben Roethlisberger, that offensive line. I want to see Coach Tomlin build a team from scratch. And after I see that, then I'll let you know if I think he's a great coach or not. Oh, Colbert, Tomlin's definitely going to be great in the booth. Well, I hope he's better than Tony Romo. Even Brady, he's a little bit better this year because, like, when Brady first started doing the games, he thought that after every play, he had to do like a 40-page paragraph. Like his voice, he would start to lose his voice mid-game. He thought that after every play, he had to talk for 20 minutes. Romo is the absolute worst. Doesn't talk in the microphone, doesn't clear his throat, doesn't have good timing. He got a little better with this also. The new play is starting. He's still talking about the old play. To me, he just doesn't take it serious. I like Tony Romo, the person. I like Tom Brady, the person. But just because you're a good player doesn't mean you're going to be great in the booth. And I'm going to end it with that. Thanks for everybody in the super chats tuning in. I appreciate it. And with that being said, thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football, the 4-1-2.